I was 25 years old, working hard every single day, and I had absolutely nothing to show for it. Not nothing in the way people say when they mean not enough. I mean, nothing. Debt, disappointment, a growing sense that something had gone terribly wrong, and I could not name what it was. I was making a living. I want you to understand that. I was showing up. I was putting in the hours. I was doing what everyone around me said you were supposed to do. And yet I remember sitting at a table one evening, looking at what my life had become, and asking myself a question I had never thought to ask before. Is this the life I meant to build? The answer, if I am honest, and I have always tried to be honest, was no, it was not. I had been so busy making a living that I had forgotten to design a life. And here is what I want you to sit before we go any further. Most people never ask that question. They go from Monday to Friday, from January to December, being from 25 to 65. And they never stop long enough to ask if the road they are on leads anywhere they actually want to go. This message is for the person who is willing to stop right now and ask. Stay with me, because what I am about to share took me years to understand, and I believe it will save you time you cannot afford to lose. Let me draw a distinction for you. A distinction I wish someone had drawn for me when I was young. Making a living is what you do for money. Designing a life is what you do with meaning. Now, I am not here to tell you that money does not matter. It matters. You need it. The bills are real. The responsibilities are real. I understand that. And I will never stand before you and pretend that survival is a small thing, because it is not. But here is what I learned, and I learned it the hard way. If making a living is all you ever do, you will arrive at the end of your years with a full schedule and an empty life. Think about that carefully. A living is a transaction. You give your time, your energy, your hours, and in return, you receive a wage. That is fair. That is necessary. But a life, a real life, is something altogether different. A life is a creation. It is something you build on purpose, with intention, like an architect who draws the plans before he ever pours the foundation. Most people build their lives the way a child builds, with blocks, randomly, without a plan, stacking whatever is available until the whole thing topples over. Then they start again, randomly, without a plan, and I am not judging them. I was one of them. But the day I understood this distinction, the day I realized that making a living and designing a life are two entirely separate activities that require two entirely separate sets of decisions, that was the day everything began to change for me. Then here is the question I want you to carry through this entire message. Write it down if you have something to write with. What kind of life am I actually trying to build? One standing, not what kind of living. What kind of life? Because you can make an excellent living and still build a terrible life. And you can live with modest means and build something so rich, so full, so genuinely satisfying that the word poor would never apply to you. The difference is design. Dean, the difference is intention. The difference is asking the question and then having the discipline to let the answer guide every major decision you make from this day forward. I have studied failure for a long time, not because I enjoy it, but because you cannot understand success until you understand its opposite. And here is what I found. The formula for failure is not dramatic. It is not one catastrophic decision. It is not a single terrible morning. The formula for failure is simply this: a few small errors in judgment, repeated every day. That is it. That is the whole formula. Easy to do, and easy not to do. You see, the man who fails to read does not fail today. He fails 10 years from now, when the world has changed and he has not. The woman who fails to save a little each month does not feel it this week. She feels it 20 years from now when the seasons of life demand resources she never built. And the person who fails to design a life, who simply shows up, earns, spends, sleeps, and repeats, does not feel the weight of that failure on a Tuesday afternoon. They feel it on a quiet evening years from now when they look around at what they have built and realize they built it by accident. This is what I mean when I say the formula for failure is easy. It requires no effort. It asks nothing of you. It simply lets you drift. And drifting over time is the most expensive thing a human being can do. Now contrast that with the formula for success. The formula for success is also a few simple disciplines practiced every day. That is all. A few things done consistently over time. The man who reads 10 pages a day reads 36 books in a year. The woman who saves a small portion of every paycheck builds a reserve that becomes a foundation. And the person who spends even 15 minutes each day asking, is the life I am building the life I want? That person gradually, steadily, inevitably builds something worth having. I want you to ask yourself right now, honestly, which formula are you currently running? Because you are running one of them. There is no neutral. There is no standing still. Every day you are either building the life you want or drifting toward a life you never chose. The choice is yours. It has always been yours. Nature is a great teacher. I have always believed that. And one of the most important lessons nature ever taught me was this: the seasons do not ask for your permission. Spring comes, summer comes, autumn comes, winter comes, and they come whether you are ready or not, whether you have prepared or not, whether you have done the work or not. Now, you cannot change the seasons. That is not within your power. But what is absolutely within your power, 100% within your power, is what you do during each season. The farmer who plants in spring and tends in summer will harvest in autumn. The farmer who waits, who says, I will plant next year, when things are better, when I feel more ready, when the timing is right, that farmer will have nothing to harvest when autumn arrives. And winter does not care about his excuses. This is the law of the harvest. And it applies to your life just as surely as it applies to any field. The spring of your life is your youth. The time of planting, of learning, of building the foundations. If you waste spring in distraction and comfort, summer will find you unprepared. And summer is when the work gets long. Summer is hot. Summer is when most people quit. But the people who work through summer, who tend their disciplines, who build their skills, who invest in themselves when it would be easier to rest, those are the people who stand in autumn with something worth showing, ending, and winter. Winter always comes. The winter of difficulty, of challenge, of loss of age. And the question winter asks is simply, what did you build when it was warm? I am asking you now, while you still have seasons ahead of you, what are you planting? What are you tending? Are you building something that will feed you in winter? Or are you spending your summers as though autumn will never arrive? Design your life around the seasons. Prepare in spring. Ding summer, work in summer, harvest in autumn, and rest wisely in winter because spring will come again. Let me tell you something that took me years to fully accept. And when I finally accepted it, it changed the people I chose to spend my time with entirely. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not approximately, not roughly, on average. In your thinking, in your habits, in your income, in your outlook on life, you will become the average of the people closest to you. This is not a criticism. This is a law, like gravity. You can ignore gravity, But it does not stop working simply because you choose not to believe in it. Ending. Now think carefully about the 5 people you spend the most time with right now. Not who you wish you spent time with, who you actually spend time with. Think about their habits, their conversations, their ambitions, their attitude toward hard work, toward money, toward the future. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. If those 5 people are not going where you want to go, if they are not building the kind of life you want to build, then their gravitational pull is working against you, ending every single day. I have seen brilliant people fail because they surrounded themselves with mediocrity. And I have seen ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things because they had the wisdom to choose their associations carefully. This is not about being cold. It is not about discarding people carelessly. It is about being intentional, which is the very thing this entire message is about. Daining, if you want to design a life, you must design your associations. Seek out people who challenge you. Spend time with people who are further along the road than you are. Or find a mentor, someone who has already built what you are trying to build, and learn from them the way a student learns from a master. And be honest with yourself about the people who are pulling you down. You do not have to cut them off dramatically, graining, but you may need to quietly, gradually adjust the amount of influence they have over your thinking. Your associations are not a small thing. They are one of the most powerful forces shaping your life. And most people never think about them at all. Here is one of the most important ideas I ever encountered, and I want to deliver it to you as directly as I know how. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, but I need my job. My job pays the bills. My job is what keeps everything running. And you are right. Absolutely right. I am not telling you to neglect your job, but consider this. If you work hard on your job, you can make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. Not just a financial fortune, though that too is possible. I mean a fortune in wisdom, a fortune in skill, a fortune in the kind of person you become over years of deliberate self-investment. Most people treat their job as the primary investment and themselves as an afterthought. They will work 8, 10, 12 hours for their employer and then give themselves 30 minutes of television and call it rest. But here is what I discovered: your job has a ceiling. Dating, there is only so much you can earn by doing what you already know how to do. Your personal growth, however, has no ceiling. Every new skill you develop, every book you read, every idea you wrestle with and absorb, that compounds, that builds. That becomes a resource no employer can take from you and no economy can eliminate. I used to ask young people, how many books did you read last year? And many of them would look at me with surprise, as if the question itself were unusual. That surprised me, because the most successful people I have ever known, without exception, were voracious readers. Not because reading is a magic formula, but because reading is how you access the thinking of the greatest minds who ever lived. It is the cheapest education available, and most people never take advantage of it. Read, study, and attend. Listen, ask questions of people who know more than you do. Take the course, learn the skill, develop the philosophy. Aiding, because here is the truth: your income will rarely exceed your personal development. And the life you are able to design will only ever be as rich as the person you have become. Become more. There, so that you can build more, so that you can give more. That is the sequence. And it begins with working harder on yourself than you do on your job. If what I have shared so far is landing with you, if you are sitting with these ideas and feeling something shift, then I want you to do something simple. subscribe to this channel. Not because I am asking for a favor, but because this is the kind of message we bring to you every single week. The philosophy of building a life on purpose, not by accident. And if you are the kind of person who is serious about that, serious about designing a life, not just making a living, then you belong here. What I am about to share next is where this message gets truly powerful. We have been laying the foundation. Now, I want to show you how to build on it. Stay with me. I want to tell you about the ant, because the ant taught me something that no professor, no seminar, no business book ever quite managed to teach me. Watch an ant sometime. Really watch one. An ant never quits. If you put an obstacle in its path, it does not sit down. It does not complain. It does not wait for someone to remove the obstacle on its behalf. It goes over it, under it, around it. And if none of those work, it finds another way. The ant is relentless. Now here is the second thing about the ant. The ant thinks winter all summer long. In the middle of abundance, when the food is plentiful and the weather is warm, the ant is already preparing for the cold. The ant does not say, "It is summer, there is plenty. I will worry about winter when winter comes." The ant thinks ahead. The ant plans. The ant stores. And the third thing about the ant, and this is perhaps the most important thing, is that the ant does all it possibly can. There is no half effort in an ant. There is no good enough. The ant brings everything it has to every task it undertakes. Now, I am not suggesting you live like an insect. I am suggesting you adopt the ant's philosophy. Because the ant philosophy is simply this: never quit, think ahead, and do all you possibly can. Here is the question I want you to sit with. In your own life, in the building of your life, are you thinking like the ant? Or are you thinking like the grasshopper who plays all summer and is shocked when winter arrives? Because winter always arrives. I have never seen it fail. And the people who are shocked by winter are always the ones who spent their summers pretending it would not come. Don't design your life around the ant's philosophy. Be relentless. Think ahead. Give everything you have to the building of what matters most. And when obstacles appear, and they will appear, do not quit. Find another way. The ant does not have the luxury of giving up. And frankly, neither do you. There is an ancient parable I have returned to again and again throughout my life. The parable of the sower. The sower goes out to plant. He scatters seed across the field. And here is what happens. Some seed falls on hard ground and it never takes root. Some seed falls among thorns and it grows a little, but the thorns choke it before it can bear fruit. Some seed falls in shallow soil and it sprouts quickly, but when the heat comes, it withers because it has no depth of root. And some seed falls on good ground, and that seed produces a harvest beyond all proportion to what was planted. Now, most people hear that parable and think it is about the seed. But I want you to hear it differently. I want you to understand that you are the sower. And the seed you scatter is your effort, your time, your discipline, your daily decisions. As some of what you plant will not grow. That is the reality of life, and I will not pretend otherwise. Some of your efforts will fall on hard ground, on circumstances that are simply not ready, on timing that is not right, on soil that cannot receive what you are offering. That is not a reason to stop planting. The sower does not stop because some seed is lost. The sower understands that the law of averages is working in his favor. If he plants enough, if he plants consistently, if he plants with wisdom, some of what he sows will find good ground. And what finds good ground will produce abundantly. Then this is the law of the harvest. and it applies to every area of life. Plant good habits, and some of them will take root and produce a harvest of health, of energy, of longevity. Plant good relationships, and some of them will grow into the kind of deep, sustaining friendships that carry you through the winters of life. Plant good ideas, and some of them will bear fruit in ways you cannot yet imagine. But you must plant. You must scatter the seed. You cannot sit at the edge of the field holding your seeds, waiting for a guarantee that every single one will grow. Life does not offer that guarantee. And the person who waits for that guarantee will never plant and will never harvest. Be a sower. Plant more than you think you need to. Trust the law of the harvest. And design your life around the understanding that what you reap tomorrow is always a direct reflection of what you plant today. I want to talk to you about the most dangerous enemy of a well-designed life. It is not failure. It is not bad luck. It is not even the wrong decisions. The most dangerous enemy is neglect. Burning in neglect is quiet. That is what makes it so dangerous. It does not announce itself. It does not break down your door in the middle of the night. It simply waits, patiently, invisibly, while you focus on other things. And while you are not looking, neglect goes to work. Neglect your health for a few years, and one day you wake up and your body has become a burden instead of a vehicle. And neglect your finances for a decade, and one morning you realize you have worked for 30 years and have nothing saved. Neglect your relationships, your marriage, your children, your friendships. And you will look up one day to find that the people you love most have quietly grown distant. Neglect does not destroy all at once. It destroys a little every day. And that is precisely why most people never catch it until it is very late. Here is what I have observed. Most people do not neglect the big things intentionally. They neglect them gradually. They tell themselves, I will get to that. I will deal with that later. One thing settled down, I will address that. And things never settle down. And later never comes. And then the neglect compounds, slowly, invisibly, relentlessly, until one day the damage is too large to ignore. The antidote to neglect is not complexity, it is attention. It is the simple, daily practice of asking, what am I neglecting right now? And then doing something, even something small, to address it. Do not wish that neglect were not so powerful. Wish instead that you were more vigilant, more attentive, more consistent in tending the garden of your life. Because a garden left untended does not stay neutral. It does not simply wait for you to return. It fills with weeds. Vanding and weeds, once established, are far harder to remove than they would have been to prevent. Tend your garden a little, consistently, ending that is how you defeat the thief called neglect. I want to address something that I hear often, something that, if left unchallenged, will quietly sabotage everything you are trying to build. People say, if only things were easier, if only the economy were better, if only I had more time, if only I had more money to start with, if only the circumstances were different. And I understand that impulse. I have felt it myself. Life is hard. The road is steep. The obstacles are real. But here is what I learned, and I want you to hear this carefully. Do not wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Do not wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Do not wish for fewer challenges. Wish for more wisdom. Because here is the truth: if you become better, genuinely better, deeper, stronger, wiser, the same challenges that once seemed impossible will begin to seem manageable. And the life you once thought was out of reach will begin to come within range. The external world is largely beyond your control. I have never found a way to control the economy, the weather, the behavior of other people, or the timing of life's difficulties. And I spent a long time wishing I could, and wasting energy I did not have on things I could not change. Standing, but the internal world, your mind, your habits, your character, your philosophy, that is entirely within your control. And here is what I discovered. When you work on the internal world with the same intensity that most people spend wishing the external world were different, something remarkable begins to happen. Then the external world begins to respond differently to you. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. And because the person who walks into a room with genuine skill, genuine confidence, genuine wisdom, that person creates different opportunities, attracts different relationships, makes different decisions, gets different results. You are the variable, not the economy, not the timing, not the circumstances, you. So the next time you find yourself wishing things were easier, stop. Redirect that energy. Ask instead, what can I do to become better? And then go do that thing. Read the book. Then learn the skill. Develop the discipline. Strengthen the philosophy. Wish you were better. And then go become it. If you have stayed with me this far, and I am glad you have, then you are not a passive person. You are someone who is genuinely wrestling with these ideas, turning them over, testing them against your own life. That is exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Subscribe if you have not already, because what I am about to share in these final sections, the deepest part of this message, is the part that ties everything together, and you will want to be here for it. The question we are building toward is not just, how do I make more money? It is, how do I make sure the life I am building is the one I actually want? And the answer to that question is closer than you think. Let me give you a tool, a simple one. One that I have used and that I have shared with thousands of people over the years. And I have never had anyone tell me it did not work. Ask yourself this question, not once, regularly. Make it a habit. Where will I be in 5 years if I keep doing exactly what I am doing right now? Not where do I hope to be? Not where do I plan to be? Where will I actually be if I change nothing, if I make no new decisions, if I simply continue on the current trajectory? Because here is what most people do. They think about where they want to be in 5 years. They dream about it. They might even write it down. But they never honestly assess where they are actually headed, based not on their wishes, but on their current behavior. Your current behavior is your real plan, not the plan you wrote down, not the goals you set on New Year's Day. Your real plan is what you do on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. It is what you choose when no one is watching and nothing is urgent, and it would be perfectly easy to do nothing. If your current behavior, your daily habits, your associations, your use of time, your investment in yourself is aligned with the life you want to build, then the 5-year question will excite you. And you will look down that line and see something worth heading toward. But if your current behavior is not aligned, if there is a gap between what you do daily and what you say you want, then the 5-year question will disturb you. And I want it to disturb you because a little productive disturbance now is infinitely better than a devastating reckoning later. And the beautiful thing about this question is that it gives you power, because once you see where your current trajectory leads, you can change it. You can make a new decision today, right now, that redirects the line. A small change in direction made early enough produces a dramatically different destination. V1, the ship that adjusts its heading by just a few degrees, will arrive in an entirely different port. And you are the captain. The heading is yours to set. Ask the 5-year question. Ask it honestly. And let the answer guide your next decision. And I want to bring everything we have discussed into one clear idea. Because all of this, the seasons, the sour, the ant, the 5-year question, the work on yourself, all of it points to one thing. A life worth living is a life lived on purpose, not by accident, not by default, not by simply following the current that everyone else is following. On purpose, with intention, with a plan that you have designed yourself based on what you actually value, what you actually want, what you actually believe a good life looks like. Now, I want to address something here because I have heard the objection many times and I want to answer it before you raise it. Some people say, but I do not know what I want. And how can I design a life when I have not yet figured out what kind of life I want to design? And I understand that, I do, but here is my answer. You know more than you think you know. You know what makes you feel alive and what makes you feel hollow. You know what kind of work energizes you and what kind drains you. You know the kind of relationships you want to be surrounded by. You know, somewhere deep in you, what a day that feels meaningful looks like. Even if you have not lived many of them, A1, start there. Start with what you know and design from that place. A life lived on purpose does not require that you have all the answers before you begin. It simply requires that you begin asking the right questions and that you let those questions guide your decisions rather than letting your circumstances make your decisions for you. Here is the practical part. Sit down today, not tomorrow, and write down your answers to these 3 questions. What do I want my life to look like 5 years from now? Not what I think is possible. What do I actually want? What would I need to become in order to build that life? What skills, what habits, what character qualities? And what is one thing I can do this week? Just one thing that moves me in that direction. That is it. 3 questions. 1 action. Then repeated week after week, month after month, year after year. That is how a life gets designed. Not in one grand gesture. Then in small, deliberate, consistent steps, taken on purpose in a direction you have chosen. We have covered a great deal of ground together. And I want to bring you home now, back to the place where we started. I was 25 years old, working hard every single day, and I had nothing to show for it. Nothing in the material sense alone. Nothing in the deeper sense. No design. No direction. Or no answer to the question of what kind of life I was actually trying to build. And then I began to ask the question. And the question changed everything. You must make a living. I am not asking you to give that up. The bills are real. The responsibilities are real. The world requires that you participate in the economy of things, that you show up, do the work, earn your place. But, and this is the most important, but I know how to offer you. You must also design a life. Because here is what I have observed across decades of study and conversation with people at every stage of life. The people who only make a living, who trade their years for dollars and never stop to ask the deeper question. Those people often arrive at the end of their working years feeling a quiet grief. Not because they failed, but because they succeeded at the wrong thing. They built a career and forgot to build a life. They accumulated things and forgot to accumulate wisdom. They were busy every day and somehow ended up with nothing they truly chose. And the people who design a life, who ask the question, who make the plan, who work on themselves, who choose their associations carefully, who plant in spring and tend in summer and trust the harvest. Those people arrive at the later seasons of life with something that cannot be bought and cannot be borrowed. They arrive with a life they recognize, a life they chose, a life that, when they look back at it, reflects something of who they truly were and what they truly valued. That is the goal. Not wealth alone. Not comfort alone, not even success alone, though all of those things can be part of it. The goal is a life that is genuinely yours. So here is my challenge to you. Not tomorrow, today. Ask the question, sit with it, write down your answer, and then this is the part most people skip. Let the answer guide your next decision, and the one after that, and the one after that. Make a living. You must. But do not let making a living become the whole of your life. Design a life on purpose, with intention, with the full understanding that you, and only you, are the architect of what gets built. The blueprint is blank. The tools are in your hands, and the seasons are already moving. And what are you going to build? You came here today asking, perhaps without knowing it, whether the life accumulating around you is the one you actually chose. Ding ding, now you have the answer. And more importantly, you have the question you must never stop asking. Dang, Oni, thanks for being here. The end screen has more in the same world. Pick whichever calls to you. Ilmo Arthanen, thanks for watching. Pick whichever video on the end screen calls to you, and keep building.